It's happened to each one of us, I'm sure, a number of times. We're eating a meal with somebody who we like, a friend, an acquaintance, colleague. And in the course of the meal, as we're talking to each other and we're looking at each other, we notice that the other person has a piece of food on their face. Perhaps they're eating a wonderful spaghetti alla bolognese, a little bit of meat sauce or a noodle. And now we're faced with a dilemma. What do we say? Do we say, "You have a piece of food on your face," which is certainly the most direct way to deal with it? Or do we think, well, if I say that to them, they might get embarrassed, and then I'll be embarrassed, and it will be awkward? Do we say, well, if I tell them they have a piece of food on their face, maybe they think that I'm obsessed about food and faces? Perhaps we might do what I often do, this type of gesture without saying anything, and then maybe they'll look at us like we've lost our minds. Or do we say nothing, thinking perhaps maybe the piece of food will fall off? Maybe they'll use their napkin, eventually, maybe, hopefully. Maybe we'll get used to it, the food on their face. Maybe better left alone. Leave it alone. Maybe it'll go away. Maybe it'll go away. But of course, you and I know that in all things in life, it never goes away. Nothing ever goes away. Today in our readings, we hear about charity. We hear about charity, first reading in the Gospel. Christian charity, how we are called to love our neighbor. Caring for those who are sick, caring for the homeless, the hungry, the forgotten, the poor, those who are being abused, those who are being hurt. Caring for those who are suffering and in need. And in our Gospel, Jesus says that we are to be the light of the world to those who are in need. The message of the Scriptures is charity. How do we love others? And this, of course, is very, very important. How do we live out this call of Christian charity? Now, there are two kinds of charity. There's true charity, and then there's false charity. True charity is caring about the person, loving the person truly, wanting the best for them. True charity is willing to sacrifice. That's why any love that we have is sacrificial. We die to the self, and we live for the other person. True charity is worried about another person's soul. Really, at the end of the day, that's the most important thing. We're worried about the person's soul, that they might get to heaven. We try to love them and help them in the midst of their need, their physical struggles or spiritual struggles. We love them as we love ourselves. That is Jesus' call, perhaps one of his most difficult teachings and challenging teachings: love your neighbor as yourself. True charity strives to do that and wants the best for the person. But there's also false charity, which is perhaps a little more common. And false charity is a kind of a sentimentality. It's saccharine. It's selfish, and it's cold. False charity is, well, we want the person to like us, so we keep everything smooth, and we sweep it under the rug, and we try to keep peace in the family. False charity is looking the other way, thinking maybe the problem will go away. False charity is really focused on our own sense of our own pride rather than the well-being of the other person. False charity sometimes is masked as true charity because we think we're being nice. But in reality, we're robbing the other person of the truth. There is a difference between true charity, which wants the best for the person. You have a piece of food on your face. And false charity, which is, well, maybe it'll go away. I think in our own lives we are faced with this all the time, perhaps first in our family lives. We're faced every day with the reality of those who we love and who we live with and who we care for, and sometimes members of our family are going the wrong way, and so you and I are forced to make a decision. How are we going to love them? When it comes to our children, if our children perhaps are living a sinful life, or our parents, do we say something? Perhaps they're living with somebody that they're not married to. Or maybe they're fallen into a terrible addiction. Or maybe they're not taking care of themselves. Or maybe those who we love and hold dearest to our hearts, or who we think we love, are going the wrong way. And then we are forced to make a decision. Are we going to talk to them and say, you are going the wrong way? You're falling into sin. You're not dressing appropriately. You're not worshiping God. You're not living your faith. You're living in sin. Stop it. Turn back. Let me help you. Do we choose that, or do we say, well, I love them and I don't want them to get mad at me, and I want to keep peace in the family, so I'm just going to look the other way, and maybe it will go away, and after all, if we keep peace in the family, that's charity, because we're all nice people, aren't we? Right. But that's not love. That's pride. False charity. Sometimes it's with a coworker, a colleague, a person we know, a neighbor, and maybe they have some very mistaken notions about what is true and what is not. Perhaps a person is ignorant about the Catholic faith, or they have been fed all sorts of lies about what we believe as Catholics or as Christians. Do we have a moment there to say, wait a second, you're mistaken, you're wrong, you're ignorant, let me show you the way? Or perhaps a person tragically believes that it's perfectly fine to murder our children through abortion, or it's perfectly fine for two men to get married or two women to get married, or there's nothing wrong with discriminating against those who are immigrants, or the list can go on. Do we have a moment there at that moment to stand up for our faith and to say, this is the truth, you are going the wrong way, you are mistaken. In charity, let me help you. Or, in false charity, do we say, well, they're really a nice person, so I'm just going to try to be very, very nice to them back, and maybe they'll send me a Christmas card. Do you see the difference? It's very subtle. But the reality is that the silence of Christians today is deafening. Deafening. So often you and I say nothing. And then, of course, we get the kind of world that we have today. True charity speaks the truth with love. Always gentle, always kind. Christ at the center, but the truth. Not going along to get along, not keeping peace in the family, not looking the other way, not trying to be everybody's friend. Jesus talks to us in our gospel today about salt and light, and as Christians we are to be the light of the world. This light is to be put on a lampstand so that everybody can see it. We are to be salt, in other words, to season things, to make the world better, tastier, if you will. But if we don't season this world through our Christian faith, if we don't take the light of our faith and shine it so that people can see Jesus in us and we can bring others to the Lord, then we are not being the light of the world. If we are not truly charitable and truly loving people, which means it's sacrificial, which means we die to the self and live for the other, which means sometimes it is embarrassing and difficult, and people may not like us. What do we do with this light? Just in a few minutes, most of us will be privileged to receive the Holy Eucharist. And the Lord's going to be inside of us. And this light that we have through our faith will shine even more brightly. What do we do with the light? Because when we have a false charity, and we think that we're being very, very nice, but in reality we're hiding the truth, then we are putting that light under a bushel basket, and the world becomes darker, like it is today. This is the challenge. Perhaps you struggle with it. I know I do. But we have to ponder in our own lives this call that Jesus gives to us to be salt and light and to truly love. And love is always sacrificial. And you know that I've told you this before, and I will tell you again. If you want to know what love looks like, there it is. The cross. That's what love looks like. There it is. That's what it looks like. We die to the self, we live for the other. We have to ask ourselves the question, in our interaction with other people, in our striving to love them, and there is a place for prudence. A place for prudence, in other words, finding the right time and the right moment to say the right thing so we don't hurt them. Certainly. But where does prudence end and cowardice begin? When do we cease to be prudent and we turn into craven cowards who just want people to like us? Ponder this in your own life. I will ponder it in mine. This is hard. When Jesus talks to us about loving other people, he means it. And sometimes loving people means we have to help them to come back on the right way, whether they're hungry or homeless or sick or living in a sinful life or going the wrong way or abandon their faith or have mistaken notions about what the truth is. All of those things are a poverty. All of those things. How can we be salt and light to them? You have a piece of food on your face. Perhaps the best answer to that is to say to the person the truth. You have a piece of food on your face, and they will be embarrassed, and we will laugh, and the problem will be solved in 30 seconds. And it will go away. But sometimes we don't do that. And then the person continues to have the noodle or the piece of the bolognese, the sauce. And then they get up to use the restroom and they look at themselves in the mirror and they say, "Oh my goodness, I have a piece of food on my face. Why didn't this person tell me? I'm so embarrassed. They thought so little of me that they didn't tell me the truth." What kind of a friend is that? And then they'll come back to the table and they'll look embarrassed. And then we'll be relieved because we don't have to look at it anymore. And then we'll think, well, I wonder if they think badly of me because I didn't tell them the truth. Far better for us to have told somebody the truth in love. And that is a very small and inconsequential issue. On larger issues, much larger, more important issues, how do we preach the truth in love? How do we live charity? Because, put another way, someday at our judgment, the Lord is going to ask us how we have been charitable, how we have loved. What will we say? Will we say, "Lord Jesus, I tried even though I was weak, and I tried to love, and I died to myself, and I lived for the other person, and I tried to tell the truth, and sometimes I did well, and sometimes I didn't, but this is what I did. I tried to love, and I told people the truth, and I lived the truth"? Or will we say, well, I wanted everybody to like me. Think about it. May God bless you.